As a matter of fact, just looking at the beauty of our world and the design and order and point of reference in our earth, everything is so awesomely, decently organized that we know that there must be a wise lawgiver somewhere. But the question is, looking at the universe and concluding that there must be someone behind it, the question is, who made the maker? Where did the creator come from? Who made God? Good question. Now, if you think I'm going to answer that, you're crazy. You see, we can spend our lives in an exercise of cause and effect forever. For example, an old woman was talking to an atheist who was trying to prove to her, as a Christian, that she was a fool, believing in a God that she could not see and could not prove. And she said to the atheist, "But how do you know God doesn't exist?" He said, "Well, I have no proof." So she asked him a question. She said, "Sir, where do chickens come from?" And of course, the scientific intellectual fool said, "Chickens come from eggs." She said, "Where did the egg come from?" And he said, "The eggs came from chickens." She said, "No, it came from a hen." She said, "And where did the hen come from?" She said, "The hen came from an egg." And she said, "Where did the egg come from?" "It came from a hen." "Where did the hen come from?" "It came from an egg." She said, "So who made the first egg?" And the atheist fell on his face, repented. What's the most powerful witnessing tool was an egg. You see, no matter how far back you go, it got to start somewhere. So we can talk about cause and effect all our lives, but we must come to a point where we conclude eventually that there is a forever being. That's a very important term to write down. There is a forever being. Behind everything, there has to be someone who was there forever, who started everything. That forever being is God. The scriptures nowhere attempt to prove the existence of God. And that's an important point to write down. The Bible never tries to prove the existence of God. And that is a very serious point. Why? Because the Bible itself doesn't even assume that there isn't a God. And we're talking about hundreds and hundreds and thousands of pages of revelation that never tries to prove there is a God. The Bible assumes the existence of God as an evident fact and as a belief natural to man. In other words, if humans are humans, naturally there is something in them that cries out to an awareness that there is a God. You don't have to tell a man to believe in God. Even the atheist is afraid of God. That's why he attempts to be an atheist. The scriptures nowhere set forth a series of proofs of his existence as a preliminary to faith. Matter of fact, the Bible never says you got to prove that God is there first, then you believe in him. The Bible never teaches that. But what the Bible does declare is that it is a fact that God exists, and the Bible calls upon you and I to make the venture of faith to know him. Hebrews chapter 11 verse 6. Let's read it. Here's what the Bible says about God. It says, he who comes to God must first believe that he what? Is, and that he is a rewarder of him that diligently seek him. It says before you can come to God, you must first believe that he what? Is. So the Bible just simply states he is, and you got to believe he is before you can even do business with him. That's why it's impossible for a so-called atheist to even know there is a God, because you got to believe he is first before you try to prove he doesn't exist. Some of you will get that next year. You see, the Bible indeed speaks of men who say in their hearts there is no God. But there in the Bible, these people are described as fools. David's conclusion in Psalm 139 verse 6 sums it up. When he talks about God, David says in Psalm 139 verse 6, such knowledge is too wonderful for me. It is too high, I cannot attain unto it. David says, I can't even talk about discussing God because God is too awesome for me. No wonder why the scriptures conclude only the fool can say in his heart, there is no God. Now there are people who deny his existence. Atheism consists in the absolute denial of God. They say he doesn't exist. Now some question whether there are really true atheists. But if there are such, it cannot be shown that they are earnestly seeking God or that they logically are consistent in that pursuit. Since atheists are opposed to the deepest and fundamental convictions of the race of man, then the burden of proof rests upon them. Selah. If you say there's no God, it's up to you to prove it, not for us who believe in him. So the next time you meet somebody who says there's no God, just answer them logically. Prove it. And tell them you don't believe them until they bring you proof. Life is simple when you deal with God. You see, they cannot sincerely and logically claim to be atheists unless they can establish proof that God does not exist. And the proof around us is undeniably evident. You see, to prove there is no God, you got to first go and make sure he doesn't exist. Use nature, come prove it to me. Use your own intellect, come prove it to me. Use the oceans and the stars, come prove it that there's no God. Prove it. If you cannot prove it, keep your thoughts to yourself. But we don't have to worry about proving that he is here. Just look in the mirror at such a wonderful, majestic creature. Look at the awesome construction of your brain and the awesome power of your intellect. This is no salamander slime from the ocean. 6 million years that eventually became a monkey and turned out to be you. How come they haven't found a half man, half monkey yet? Atheism is a crime against society. Why? Because it destroys the only adequate foundation for morality and righteousness. A personal God who holds man personally responsible and accountable for his actions and keeping his divine law, men would like to get rid of. That's why it's dangerous to even support people who claim to be atheists, because they are literally working against your own safety. Atheism is also a crime against man. It's an attempt to tear out the heart of man and his craving for the spiritual, his hunger and thirst for the infinite. And man needs that craving to have a sense of belonging and a sense of awareness of his own value. The scriptures boldly declare, let God be true and every man a liar.